Even if you had a super high-resolution computer screen, you'd sometimes still need to zoom in to see details and zoom out to see the big picture. Now, all of that is possible in InDesign, of course, once you know where to look. I'm going to show you several ways to zoom in and out of your page. The first method is the Zoom tool, which lives down here at the bottom of the tool panel, that little thing that looks like a magnifying glass. The Zoom tool is very handy for zooming in and out, but I never choose it. Why? Because I want to be efficient, so I use the keyboard shortcuts. The keyboard shortcut for the Zoom tool is on the Mac, Command and Control spacebar. On Windows, it's just Control spacebar. So that gives you the Zoom tool, and you can see there's a little plus inside the Zoom tool cursor. Wherever I click with that plus magnifier, it zooms in. So if I want to zoom in on this little area, I just click on it. It zooms right in on that. Now, while I'm still holding down those modifier keys, so I have that Zoom tool temporarily, I can also drag out an area. Dragging a rectangle with that tool means zoom in as close as you can to fit that on my screen. See how that works? When I let go of the modifier keys, I go back to my previous tool, in this case, the selection tool, that black arrow tool. So now I know how to zoom in. How do I zoom out again? Well, I use the same keyboard shortcuts, Control, Command, Spacebar on Mac or Control, Spacebar on Windows, and then I add the Option key on the Mac or the Alt key on Windows. So I'm basically holding down most of my modifier keys, and I now have the same cursor, but it has a minus in it. That means I'm going to zoom back. I'll click with that, and it zooms back. Click again, and it zooms back a little bit more. So that's really handy. On the other hand, that's going to take a long time. I'd have to click a bunch of times before I zoom all the way back to see the whole page again. So instead of using that, I'm going to zoom back with a different feature. Now, if I look in the upper left corner of the document window, I can see that I'm currently at 300%. That's the zoom percentage that I'm in. But if I look even farther up in the application bar, I can see it says 300%. But if I move my cursor on top of that, you can see it highlights. That's an indicator that I can edit that number. So I could come in here and type any value I want, or I could use this little pop-down menu on the side and choose a value. For example, I'll go back to 75%. So that's another way that you can zoom in and out of your page using the application bar zoom widget, as they call it. Now, another way you could do this is by going to the View menu. In fact, most of these zoom features are in here, not all of them, but most of them are in the View menu themselves. And you can see that zoom in is here, zoom out is here. The keyboard shortcuts for those are Command, equal, or minus, although the equal key is actually the same key as the plus. So internally in my mind, I think of this as Command plus, or on Windows, Control plus zooms in, and Command minus, or Control minus on Windows, zooms out. So those are really handy. But the ones that I use all the time are Fit Page in Window or Fit Spread in Window. A spread is like a left-hand and a right-hand page next to each other. So Command Option 0, or on Windows, Control Alt 0, zooms out to fit the entire spread in the window. In this case, the spread is just one page, so that's what it fits in the window. I really like that feature a lot. A couple other things that I should point out here. Actual size is Command 1, goes to 100%. This 100%, this actual size, is not really actual size. You know, it's just sort of almost like actual size, and it's frustrating to me, so let me just tell you a little bit about this. It's based on this assumption that Adobe makes that you're using a 72 dpi monitor. And that's crazy because the last time anybody used a 72 dpi monitor was like 1987. Really, really old monitors were that low resolution. These days, everyone uses higher resolution monitors like 96 or 110 or even higher. So this assumption of 72 dpi is totally crazy. But it's what InDesign assumes, it's what we're stuck with, and that is why 1 inch in the ruler here does not equal 1 inch in the real world. It's just one of those things that you're going to have to deal with until we can get Adobe to change this feature. So 100% is actual size, but not really actual size. Just something to keep in mind. Now, there are a couple of keyboard shortcuts I want you to know about that don't appear in the View menu, and it's sad that they're not there because they're really handy. One of them is Command 2. Command 2 goes to 200%, or on Windows it's Control 2. Another one to go even closer in, Command or Control 4 goes to 400%, and then Command or Control 5, no, it doesn't go to 500%, it goes to 50%. But I find I use those all the time for moving in and out. Command 2, 4, and 5, or Control 2, 4, and 5 on Windows. Very, very handy. Okay, one more sort of zoom-related feature that I just want to point out, really handy feature in InDesign. I'm going to zoom in on something like maybe up here in the upper left corner. I've zoomed in to 452%. I just used the keyboard shortcuts, again on the Mac, Command Control Spacebar to get that zoom tool. On Windows, it's just Control Spacebar. I then dragged out a rectangle and zoomed in to just this part. Now, I want to check out the same zoom level, but on a different part of the page. So I want to zoom out, move to a different part of the page, and zoom back in again. How do I do it? I'm going to use a feature called Power Zoom. And you get Power Zoom not with the zoom tool, like you'd expect, but instead with the hand tool. And as we learned in an earlier movie, you get the hand tool temporarily by holding down Option Spacebar or Alt Spacebar on Windows. That gives me the hand tool, and now I'm going to click with the mouse button and hold for like 1 or 2 seconds. It zooms way back, and it gives me this red rectangle. By moving the mouse, I can move that rectangle anywhere I want on the page. And then when I let go of the mouse button, it zooms in on that area. So Power Zoom is really handy for doing sort of spot checking of different areas on my page. Again, hold on the keyboard shortcuts for the hand tool, click and hold for a moment on the mouse, and then move that around. Actually, while the mouse button is being held down, I can use the arrow keys on my keyboard. I've actually let go of the modifier keys, and I'm going over to the arrow keys, and I'm moving up or down. And this lets me change the zoom level, bigger or smaller, while I'm holding down the mouse button. So now I can zoom right in on that letter E. I hit the down arrow to make it smaller. Now I focus it on that E, let go of the mouse button, and you can see it zooms right in on that big E. So that's very handy as well. I just love that Power Zoom feature. I could do that all day, zooming out and back in. But we cannot stop there. We have to move on to another super important feature, how to manage multiple open windows.